Attention Minnesota Vikings fans. The news we have today will drive you crazy. Vikings fans are flooding our social networks trying to understand what just happened. And here in this video, you will know everything firsthand. So don't leave. Don't forget to leave your like on the video too, because it helps our community to grow more. And if you are not subscribed yet, subscribe, because here we always do giveaways with subscribers. Now let's go to today's news. Minnesota Vikings reveal top target for 2025 draft. A monster on defense could be coming. The NFL offseason is always a roller coaster of emotions, and the Minnesota Vikings are experiencing it intensely. Since free agency opened, the team's front office has been working tirelessly to bolster virtually every area of the roster, bringing in key pieces and adjusting its strategy for the 2025 season. But the cherry on top is yet to come. The NFL Draft, which takes place on April 24th. And while the Vikings still have time to define their final plan, rumors indicate that the team already has a very specific name in mind for the first round. If all goes as Minnesota wants, Commissioner Roger Goodell could very well be announcing Oregon defensive tackle Derek Harmon as the newest Viking on draft day. NFL insider Ben Goesling, Star Tribune, revealed that Harmon is at the top of the Vikings' wish list. During the Access Vikings podcast, Goesling made it clear that the 6'4", 315-pound defensive tackle is being closely monitored by the team. He's a guy on their priority list. I heard that again this week. Ben Goesling, Star Tribune. That doesn't mean the Vikings are ignoring other positions. There's still a need at cornerback, and it all depends on how the first few draft picks play out. But if it's up to Minnesota's decision-makers, the path is already set to bring in Harmon to bolster the defense. If you're not familiar with Derek Harmon, you might want to get used to that name. He may not be the hottest prospect in the draft, but his numbers speak for themselves. 2024 season with Oregon Ducks. 14 games played. 45 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles. Before shining at Oregon, Harmon spent 3 years with the Michigan State Spartans, showing consistency and growth. In total, his college career totals 116 tackles, 8.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. If the numbers aren't enough to convince you, here's some analysis from PFF, Pro Football Focus, that show Harmon's real impact. Overall defensive grade, 83.9, 12th best DT in the country. Grade against the run game, 80.5. Pass rush grade, 86.3. Bottom line, Harmon is a complete DT who can both pressure quarterbacks and close gaps against the run game. Why do the Vikings need Derek Harmon? You might be wondering, but the Vikings already signed defensive tackles in free agency. Why draft another one? Yes, Minnesota made some big moves to bolster its defensive line, bringing in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, 2 of the best defensive tackles available in free agency. The problem? Both are in their 30s and on short-term contracts. The Vikings have taken this approach before. Last year, they bolstered their pass rush by signing Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Greenard in free agency, and then spent their first-round pick on the talented Dallas Turner. Now, it appears the same strategy is at play. Secure an immediate boost while also setting up the position for the future. And let's be honest, if Derek Harmon is available when the Vikings pick, passing on him would be a huge mistake. ESPN's renowned draft analyst Mel Kiper projects Harmon to be selected 21st overall by the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if the Vikings really want him, they'll have to act fast to make sure no one steals their pick. In the meantime, Goesling reinforced on the Access Vikings podcast that the team is aware of the contract limitations of its more experienced players and is planning for that transition. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add another defensive tackle. There's a lot of depth in that group, but the Vikings need to make sure they have solutions for the next few years. This team has been leaning toward older players in recent years, but that means they're going to have to eventually revamp their defense. And it looks like Derek Harmon could be that key piece. Minnesota Vikings former Pro Bowler for backup role. Is Ryan Tannehill the right fit? The Minnesota Vikings are on a mission this offseason to make sure their quarterback position is well-rounded for the 2025 NFL season. With first-round pick J.J. McCarthy taking over as the starting quarterback, The team now needs a reliable backup, someone who can hold down the fort if the youngster needs time to develop or, in the worst-case scenario, has to deal with injuries. The search for that QB2 intensified after Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, and Nick Mullins signed with other teams in free agency. The Vikings even considered Aaron Rodgers at one point, but the four-time MVP appears to have other plans and was spotted visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers. With options on the market thinning, Minnesota has turned its attention to another veteran who could play a key role on the team, Ryan Tannehill. According to Fox Sports NFL insider Jordan Schultz, the Vikings have had discussions with Tannehill about a potential contract. The 36-year-old former Miami Dolphins and Tennessee Titans defensive end spent the 2024 season out of the NFL, but has made it clear that he would be willing to return if he found an attractive opportunity. For the Vikings, bringing in a veteran quarterback makes sense. Having an experienced quarterback on the roster would help ease pressure on McCarthy and ensure the team has someone reliable to step in if needed. Tannehill, a former Pro Bowl selection with a career interception rate of just 2.4%, could be a solid fit to fill that void. On the other hand, there are some uncertainties. While Tannehill has a respectable resume, he has never been known to actively mentor young quarterbacks. During his time with the Titans, when Malik Willis was drafted, Tannehill made it clear that it wasn't his job to be a mentor, which raises questions about how willing he would be to help McCarthy adjust to the NFL. Furthermore, even though Minnesota has a well-structured offensive system and a talented roster, Tannehill may not be thrilled about taking on a backup role. At 36, does he want to spend the next few years on the bench, waiting for an opportunity that may never come? Fan reaction: a smart hire or a strategic mistake? With the rumors gaining momentum, Vikings fans quickly took to social media to give their opinions on the possible arrival of Tannehill. While some liked the idea of having an experienced quarterback on the roster, others questioned whether he is the right fit for the franchise at this time. See some reactions below. He and McCarthy have the same agent. Is this talk being pushed behind the scenes? Asked one fan. Tannehill could be a good backup, but as a mentor, he's made it clear in the past that he doesn't enjoy that role. Is that what the Vikings need? Another fan commented, if they wait until May to sign him, the Vikings avoid losing a compensatory pick in the 2026 draft. So why do this deal now? A third fan noted. In fact, the compensatory pick could be a major factor in the decision. If the Vikings sign Tannehill before May, they'll lose the chance to receive an extra pick in the 2026 draft. As a result, the team may be taking a more cautious approach, waiting for the right time to make a final decision. With the offseason underway, the Minnesota Vikings continue to evaluate their options to strengthen their roster. If Tannehill is indeed signed, he would bring stability and experience to the quarterback position, but the final decision will depend on several factors, including the player's own interest and the financial impact to the team. If, on the other hand, the Vikings decide to wait, they could explore other options on the market or even rely on a younger quarterback for the backup role. Regardless of what happens, one thing is certain: this saga is far from over. And while the Vikings look for the right piece to complete their roster, fans remain anxious to see how this story will unfold. Stay tuned, because the next chapters are promising.